Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are setting out on a fascinating, frankly incredible scientific journey into the biology of female aging to answer one big question: what actually happens to a woman's body during menopause? We're going to objectively explore one of the most universal, yet somehow still frequently misunderstood, phases of human life. We'll map out exactly how the body transforms, what causes these massive systemic shifts, and how science explains the day-to-day realities of this transition. Menopause is not the end of a woman's health or vitality. It is a major biological transition that can change almost every system in the body. But what is actually happening beneath the surface? Part 1. The biological transition. Okay, so to really wrap our heads around the symptoms you always hear about, we first need to map out the biological timeline. Because this isn't just an overnight event, right? It's a process. It kicks off with perimenopause, which typically starts anywhere between ages 45 and 55. During this phase, hormone levels start to fluctuate pretty unpredictably. Menstrual cycles might become longer, shorter, heavier, or much lighter, until eventually they stop entirely. Now, what's really interesting here is that true menopause isn't actually a prolonged phase at all. Medically speaking, it's defined as a very specific milestone, exactly 12 consecutive months without a period. In the US, the average age for hitting that mark is 51 or 52. Once you pass that 12-month line, you enter postmenopause. That's a phase that lasts for the rest of a woman's life, and certain symptoms from the transition can actually stick around for a decade or more. So, what's actually driving this whole timeline? Well, it all comes down to the ovaries. Before menopause, the ovaries are essentially these active little factories pumping out high, fluctuating levels of estrogen and progesterone. Those are the hormones that control the menstrual cycle. But as a woman moves into postmenopause, ovarian function effectively shuts down, and that results in severely depleted hormone levels. This steep, dramatic drop in estrogen and progesterone, that is the biological engine driving almost every single systemic change we are about to explore. Section 2. Vasomotor and sleep changes. Let's talk about probably the most famous hallmark of this transition. A staggering 75%, that's literally 3 out of every 4 women, will experience hot flashes, which doctors call vasomotor symptoms. What's wild from a scientific standpoint is that researchers still don't completely understand the exact pinpoint mechanism of why they happen. But there is absolutely no doubt they are linked to those changing hormone levels we just talked about. Basically, the decline in estrogen messes with the brain's internal thermostat. Let's actually walk through the anatomy of a hot flash, step by step. Step 1 is this sudden, really intense feeling of heat just rushing to the upper body and face. In step 2, you might actually see visible red blotches or flushing appearing on the chest, neck, and back. Step 3 brings on heavy sweating as the body frantically tries to cool itself down. And then finally, step 4, this whole ordeal is often followed by intense shivering or cold chills. These flashes can last anywhere from 30 seconds to 10 minutes. You can imagine how much that disrupts your focus during the day and, crucially, your rest at night.
And that brings us to sleep. The dual drop in these hormones basically creates a perfect storm for sheer exhaustion. A drop in progesterone makes it biologically harder to fall asleep and harder to stay asleep once you do. Meanwhile, the drop in estrogen triggers those hot flashes at night, which we call night sweats, and those physically wake the body up, completely shattering the sleep cycle. Add up all that physical exhaustion, and it is so easy to see why this transition is heavily linked to mood changes, increased irritability, and anxiety. It's just utterly draining.
Section 3. Brain and body systems. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Hormones don't just mess with your temperature and your sleep. They are chemical messengers that ripple across every major bodily system. If you've ever heard a woman describe getting brain fog during midlife, well, the data completely validates her. 2/3 of women going through perimenopause report memory problems or trouble focusing. This isn't made up. It's a very real, well-documented neurological symptom as the brain tries to adapt to operating in a new, low-estrogen environment. We also see some really significant changes down in the pelvic region. Lower estrogen causes vaginal tissue to literally become thinner, drier, and less elastic. This can make intercourse really painful, a medical condition called dyspareunia. On top of that, the urethra can become inflamed. That leads to an increased risk of urinary tract infections and sometimes a loss of bladder control or incontinence. Now, I want to be super clear here. Urinary problems are not just a normal, inevitable part of getting older. They are a direct symptom of menopause, and they can absolutely be successfully treated. Now, these microscopic hormone shifts, they also drive massive macroscopic changes to body composition. Your whole metabolism shifts, meaning the body literally uses energy differently than it used to. Body fat actively redistributes and starts to gather around the stomach and upper body rather than the hips. Muscle mass naturally decreases. Skin loses its elasticity, it becomes thinner and drier, and hair might even begin to thin out.
But we do need to draw a strict, objective line here, because not everything that happens when you turn 50 is caused by menopause. There's a difference. We have menopause-linked symptoms, things like hot flashes, vaginal dryness, and night sweats. Those are caused directly by hormone depletion. But then we have aging-correlated changes, a general slowdown in metabolism, waking up with stiff joints, some natural memory shifts. Those happen to all humans as they age, regardless of menopause. Untangling what is a hormone drop and what is simply the passage of time is absolutely key to understanding midlife health.
Section 4, Long-Term Health Impacts. While hot flashes get all the media attention, we really need to shift our focus to the invisible, internal changes, because those have major long-term implications for a woman's health. The first invisible shift happens right in the skeleton. Before menopause, estrogen acts like a shield, actively protecting a woman's bones. When that estrogen shield disappears, women lose bone mass incredibly fast, especially in the 4 to 8 years right after menopause. This drastically spikes the risk of osteoporosis, which is a condition where bones become so thin and brittle they can break easily, especially in places like the hip, wrist, and spine. And it's a very similar story with the heart. Much like with your bones, the estrogen your body produces before menopause actually protects you against heart attacks and strokes. After menopause, women lose a huge chunk of this natural cardiovascular armor. When you combine that sudden estrogen loss with other midlife factors that tend to creep in, things like rising cholesterol, higher blood pressure, maybe moving a bit less, the overall risk of heart disease and stroke jumps up significantly.
Section 5, Your Unique Journey.
So we've outlined the core biology, but it is so vital to understand the sheer variability of this transition. There is absolutely no single normal experience. Every single woman experiences menopause differently, and there's a reason for that. Genetics play a massive role. Race and ethnicity are also huge factors. For instance, the data clearly shows that Black women are more likely to experience earlier menopause, and they often have longer, more severe hot flashes compared to white women, while Asian women often report having fewer symptoms overall. Lifestyle matters too. Smoking is directly linked to an earlier onset of menopause and much worse symptoms. And finally, your environment, your stress levels, and family dynamics can seriously amplify the psychological impact of the whole transition.
Now, with all that variability, it raises a really critical medical question, right? How do you know when a symptom isn't just a normal part of the transition, but actually something that needs urgent evaluation by a doctor?
Well, there are some very clear medical red flags you need to watch for. The absolute most urgent one is any vaginal bleeding, even if it's just spotting, after you have gone 12 full months without a period. Postmenopausal bleeding is never normal, and it can be a sign of serious health problems, including cancer. Even during the perimenopause phase, you should definitely see a doctor if your periods start happening very close together, if the bleeding is unusually heavy, or if you ever experience bleeding after sex. Staying safe and monitoring your body is paramount here. Section 6. Thriving after menopause. To wrap up our biological deep dive, let's talk solutions. What are the evidence-based ways to actually manage your health through this? Because of those long-term impacts on the heart and bones we talked about, your foundational, everyday lifestyle choices become your very first line of defense. Nutrition-wise, you've got to prioritize calcium and vitamin D to fortify those rapidly thinning bones. For physical activity, you want to shift toward weight-bearing exercises, strength training to keep that muscle mass, and balance training to prevent falls. And lifestyle choices like cutting back on alcohol, quitting smoking, and maintaining a healthy weight, these become absolutely critical tools to protect your cardiovascular system. But listen, lifestyle tweaks alone don't always cut it, and that is completely okay. There is a wide spectrum of symptom relief available. On the simpler side, dressing in layers and keeping cold water handy can help manage the hot flashes, while over-the-counter moisturizers and lubricants can easily relieve vaginal dryness. Medically, FDA-approved menopausal hormone therapy is highly effective for hot flashes and bone protection, though of course it comes with varying risks that depend entirely on your age and medical history. For women who can't or just prefer not to take hormones, there are non-hormonal prescriptions out there, like gabapentin, that doctors use to successfully cool the body down. The main takeaway? You absolutely do not have to just grit your teeth and suffer through it. Menopause is a natural biological transition. Understanding the changes happening inside the body can help women recognize what is normal and make informed decisions about their health. So as we reframe how we view this completely universal transition, I'll leave you with this. How can this knowledge change the way you, or the women you love, approach this next vital chapter of health?